Cosmere can be a confusing place.
From allomancy to surge binding, there's a lot to look out for.
We're your hosts and escorts to the realms. I'm Griff.
And I'm Alex.
And this is the Silverlight Guide to the Cosmere.
So,
do
you have any life updates?
Not really.
Because this is what our listeners want.
Right.
We've pulled all two of them, and
let's see. Weather's been nice at the very least. Actually, it's been surprisingly cool for it, like, edging into summer.
That's true.
The past few days.
We did have a horrifyingly cold part. I took off work because it was my anniversary, and my parents-in-law had a pool built.
Oh, okay.
And the idea was that we'd go
and swim.
But while they have a heated pool, we never got around to it because we've been organizing because we are going to stay in this apartment another year.
Fair.
At least.
Fair.
So that's where we're at. Assuming this episode comes out in any kind of timely manner, the most important news that I'm aware of, two things. If you backed the Indiegogo, White Sands.
Oh, the White Sands, yeah.
White Sands. They are currently in the process of getting the whole process done.
Okay.
And so they've pushed from July to August.
Damn.
It's likely going to be pushed back more because of paper supply chain stuff.
Oh, okay. That's understandable, yeah.
And so, but for those who missed it, they still have pre-order stuff, which is everything except the signed copies.
Right.
For the price that they were offering them. So really, as people do some of the discussion on the questions to the makers are like, why is it the same price? Why are we getting anything special? I'm just like, chill, dude. Chill.
Yeah.
This is a re-release with some extra bits. Just chill.
You're already getting a nice hardback copy, potentially signed, like.
And while it's not Dragonsteel themselves, it is obviously very combined with Dragonsteel, and we can rest assured that we're going to have a quality product.
Yes.
In a reasonable amount of time. Yeah.
Not to mention the fact of, like, why do you have to get it at a better price than other people?
Yeah. And so while, slightly disappointing if they push it back even more.
Right. At the same time, we're going to get a quality product. We know that.
Que sera, sera.
Right.
Sorry,
go on.
I think maybe you were about to bring up the Dark One?
Yes. I was actually about to bring up, speaking of graphic novels, apparently Brandon Sanderson is doing a novelization of his Dark One graphic novel.
Yes.
Because while... And he put this very diplomatically, but he said that, of course, the comic creator put his own touch on things.
Right.
And I guess Brandon was not entirely happy with some of the executive decisions the comic maker made, and doesn't feel like it best represented what he wanted to do with the story. At least that's kind of what I read in between the lines of. That's not how Brandon put it exactly, but that was kind of what read off to me. On that front, I'm hoping that we will get a final answer on whether or not the Dark One is in the Cosmere.
I'm betting it's not, but yeah, I hope so.
Because, as I said, as of what he said last, yes, it was. If not, I might shoot an email and be like, I don't know how to reach him specifically, but I do want to be like, look, I know you said back then that it was in the Cosmere, yes, but also one of the things I'm going to like about it coming out as a book is that hopefully we'll get an audiobook of it, and then I can listen to it at work rather than trying to fit it in around my already busy schedule outside of work.
Sure, yeah, that is the perk of audiobooks.
Because I will freely admit, as much as I'm always going to love the Cosmere, of course, I think I will be slightly disappointed if they decide to somehow try to work Earth into it.
Yes, it would be nice to have it distinct, like
Yeah.
Middle Earth.
Yeah, like Middle
Lord of
Earth.
the Rings.
Like, I
Or
understand.
all of Star Wars.
Yeah, I understand that it doesn't make sense that humans are there if there is no Earth, but that doesn't break my suspension of disbelief nearly as much as actual Earth somehow being connected to the Cosmere.
I've always thought of stories that have humans in them, which is almost all stories, right?
Yeah, pretty much, because I think...
that's what we want. That's what readers
right.
want. They want a relatable experience in some way that they can... anyways, any and all stories that are not connected to Earth
right.
are as if the Earth evolved in a different way. And that's just where I go with it.
I don't mind the presence of humans. I think it is because it is the normativity. We're used to seeing humans, so our brain doesn't even think about it when we see humans even in a fantasy realm.
Right. And maybe even some of the best stories are where the author can take alien species, even if they're really humanoid, and make them relatable.
Yes.
The Parshendi.
Yeah, the Parshendi.
Star Wars does it. I mean, obviously we look at those and we're like, oh, they're just humans with a headdress, like.
Well, and like even that, I mean, like the Skywalkers were originally supposed to be these bee aliens.
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, did you not know about this? Okay, so if you look it up, there was a comic released a while back that was adapted off of the original script that George Lucas pitched.
Sure.
And in that one, the Skywalkers are not humans. They are this race of bee aliens.
As in the insect.
Yes, as in the insect. Now, to be fair, in that one, Darth Vader is not related to the Skywalkers in any way.
Okay.
He's not a bee alien.
He's a normal robot dude, cyborg.
Right, yeah. He looks typical. I mean, he looks pretty much akin to the Darth Vader that we get. He's not familially related to the Skywalkers in any way, shape, or form. But this is also back when the Stormtroopers also carried lightsabers, and lightsabers were just a weapon. It was not...
Jedi specific.
Right.
Wow. Okay, last bit of Sanderson news. They did come out with the artwork for The Lost Metal.
Yes.
Which is nice. It's got a nice red, foggy background with Wax and Wayne front and center. I've always imagined Wayne with shorter hair and Wax with shorter hair and Wayne as a shorter, stouter man, even though they've been on a cover of each of the books.
I guess I always did imagine Wayne as kind of like shorter and like stockier than Wax.
Yeah, which no reason why other than the accent, really, that Michael Kramer, James Kramer, Michael Keaton, Michael Kramer gets.
I'm trying to find the page of the comic that has this. Yeah, well, whatever. I'll look it up later and I'll send you something on text.
Sure.
But yeah, anyway. But yeah, Lost Metal, and that should be coming out in November.
11/15.
Yeah.
November 15th. Squarely in the center of the month.
So we'll be able to get that, and luckily that'll only be a few months before the release of the Year of Sanderson.
That's right.
So that year we will have plenty to talk about.
That's for sure.
Every episode, basically.
Yeah.
Because not only will we have the loot boxes that'll be coming out every month, we'll also have the books that we will need to start listening to rather quickly, because we'll only have 3 months to get through them before the next one comes out.
That's true.
Not that I'm complaining, mind you.
No, I mean, if... Let's be real, like, I would dedicate an entire Saturday to reading, and they don't look like... They're not doorstops.
No, they're not going to be they're not going to be the Stormlight archives.
Yeah.
Because he wrote them in, a few months' time, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, we only had 2 years of pandemic, so like 6 months.
Right.
I feel with 4 novels, it's not like.
Fascinatingly, tangentially, I don't know how recent this interview was, but George R.R. Martin and Stephen King sat down.
Okay.
And I just saw a clip on YouTube, and it was hilarious. Martin looks at Stephen King and says, "How do you write so damn fast?" and then Stephen King actually gave his answer.
Okay.
Which is he aims to write 6 pages a day. When he's doing his work.
Right.
And that means without, remove air resistance from the problem. Without any kind of doctor's appointments, whatever. That means 2.5 months you have a 360-page book.
Fair.
So, definitely, yeah. These won't be doorstop. The Sanderson books won't be doorstops, but...
On the life thing, I have decided to participate in NaNoWriMo this month.
Oh.
Or this year. Sorry, this year.
I was going to say, wasn't that November?
No. NaNoWriMo this year.
Okay.
I plan to work and try to finish, obviously, my Fantasy Regency series idea that I've had bouncing around in my head for a while.
Do I know of this one?
I don't know if I've told you about this one. So basically, it takes place in an alternate Regency England.
Okay.
In which, well, I say Regency. It starts in 1801, and the Regency technically didn't start until 1811. But
yeah, well.
So Georgian Regency, roughly there.
Sure.
And it, well, no, I think it actually starts in 1802. The reason that that's important is that one of the first books deals with the events leading up to the Louisiana Purchase.
Oh, I see.
And that was done in 1803.
Yes.
Anyway, regardless, so, Regency England, but magic exists.
Okay.
And has for a while.
That's good.
The way that I explain away the logical consistency of Earth would develop massively differently if magic actually existed is that up until recently, they did not discover the underlying laws that governed magic.
Sure.
It was just people did shit, and occasionally it worked out.
Okay, so it somewhat mirrors technological advances.
Exactly. That's exactly what I wanted to do, which was people just did shit, and occasionally stuff happened.
Right.
And it wasn't until further forward that they discovered the underpinning laws, what governed it, how it actually worked, and were able to, create, the whole scientific method, recreating reproducible results.
Reproducible results.
Yeah, yes. Reproducible results. So, so that's how I explain that. And so most noble families in England are heavy mage families.
Sure.
Because while mages don't guarantee breed true, if you have 2 mages, they do have a better chance of producing another mage.
So it is genetic.
It is genetic. It's semi-genetic.
Semi-genetic.
Yeah.
Somewhat. Okay.
So people who are not in a noble family can produce a mage offspring.
Sure.
And people who are mages can mate and not necessarily produce a mage offspring, but there is a higher chance if you have 2 mages.
Huh.
So
cool.
And it can govern their abilities are based in the 4 traditional elements of
poison, electric. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, absolutely. No, the fire, water, air, earth.
Sure.
Each, and I do have a thing in there connected with the platonic solids, which I don't know if you're familiar with.
I am vaguely aware of them.
Okay, the platonic solids.
I think I had one of those this morning.
I will need to. I need to look up the underpinning like alchemy and everything of them, but Plato effectively came up with 4 designs, which you actually should be familiar with. It's the dice that we play D&D with. The tetrahedron, the cube,
okay,
the icosahedron, the dodecahedron,
okay,
and The 8-sided one, which I'm drawing. Octahedron?
Probably.
Okay. Anyway, regardless, each one is tied to an element. The tetrahedron is tied to fire. The cube is tied to earth. The octahedron is tied to air. The icosahedron is tied to water. And the dodecahedron is tied to spirit.
Okay.
Which was his...
Sure.
He considered it a fifth element. And
movie.
so basically mages need to be holding... So basically what mages can just do is they can move around Aether, which is my name for mana. I'm not
Sure.
just calling it, or my name for the magical element.
Uh-huh.
I'm not calling it... There's some actually issues with mana, apparently.
Bread? I love bread.
Not that mana, the other mana. There's a whole religious aspect, so I decided to not use that term.
Could go womana. That'd make it...
Yes, of course. Anyway, I'm going with Aether because that was an actual Greek concept brought up as kind of a thing. So I thought, why not pull from something that actually existed?
Aether's cool.
And the Georgian and Victorian England people loved the Romans and the Greeks.
Sure.
So
And spelling things with extra letters.
that too, yes. Anyway, regardless, that's just their ability. But if they draw Aether into themselves through, like, say, a dodec, or let's say an icosahedron,
Sure.
they will be able to produce and control water.
Okay.
But they need to draw the mana in first before they can do that. And the mana is transformed into water, or the Aether is transformed into water Aether through pulling in the Aether through that design.
And I imagine that these... There's a word. A focus. The dodecahedron and everything, they're ridiculously embellished, depending
Some
on
are,
the family.
yeah. And the size of them depends on how much mana you can draw in at once.
Sure.
There is so mages are mages because they have a benchmark minimum mana that they can hold at one time.
Okay.
Lower than that, work on other magical things like imbuing. There's a whole thing. Anyway, regardless, mages, there is a cap at how much mana or how much Aether you can hold.
Sure.
But that how much you fill up is dependent on the size of the object. So yes, there are people that carry around ridiculously embellished ones that are very large, so they can draw it in very easily. My character was actually the second son who became the heir after his brother died. So he was actually part of the military.
Oh, okay.
And military mages have their place. Actually, that's one of the things that I have different is the fact that women, there's not as much sexism because mages are rare enough that even women are pulled into military service.
Sure.
Though they have more of a support service than combat. But anyway, regardless.
Somewhat like Mistborn.
Yeah, someone like Mistborn, yes.
Which we will be getting back to.
Yes, eventually.
Today.
You can probably cut this entire thing out. Anyway, regardless.
No.
Fair. So my character is the second son.
Sure.
Brother gets killed, he becomes the heir. Father dies. Actually, where we get the father is dead, so he is actually the lord of the house. And he is sent on a covert mission because he was part of the military, no longer since he is the heir, so he wasn't able to continue his military service. He is sent on a covert mission to the Americas because during the Georgian era, the Napoleonic War is still going on.
Right.
And of course, Napoleon owns the Louisiana territory of the Americas at that time.
Right.
And so my character is sent to effectively scout it out, see if Napoleon is making any overtures of alliance with America, and see if he's doing anything with the land that England needs to be concerned about.
Cool.
Shocker, Napoleon is doing something with the land. And all of those events and the political debacle that would have been is what leads to Napoleon selling the Louisiana Purchase to the Americas.
Cool.
So.
There you go.
Yeah.
look forward to that on bookshelves.
I hope so. At some point, it'd be nice to see my name on an actual published book.
That would be.
So I hope to take NaNoWriMo, churn out the, draft of the first full draft of the novel.
Absolutely.
Then, of course, I can go through and edit and things like that. I am not going to do what somebody recommended. This is probably the worst
Hit us.
novel advice I have ever heard ever.
Go for it.
They said after you write your first book, set it aside and completely start on rewriting it. Because you will end up with a completely different story. And I'm like, yeah, of course you fucking will. Because yes, you've changed. But then why stop at that second rewrite? Set that aside and completely start rewriting the book again.
And then publish all three, people will get so confused.
Right, okay, I understand that there is a thing of sit down, edit your finished project, make even major changes if you need to make the story work. But don't fucking start rewriting it from page 1.
No.
That's like the worst advice I've ever heard.
That's weird.
Because, yeah, you're going to end up with a completely different product and storyline because you have different thoughts at that point.
It's true.
Anyway. I have a hard enough time churning out the first draft.
Right.
Don't make me sit down and rewrite it again.
Fair.
I will edit the first draft. I will edit it to Kingdom Come. But let me at least have the foundation there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like something that they would put on writing excuses. But,
anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I hope to have that out, edit it, get it published, and I don't expect to become as big as Brandon Sanderson, but hopefully some people will enjoy my work.
Hopefully.
Anyway.
Mistborn. Today's discussion is about
Scadrial.
The first of the Mistborn, the trilogy.
Right, the
Era
first
1.
Yeah, The Last Empire.
The Last Empire and the next two. Really. The Scadrial as a whole.
Scadrial as a whole, and like you said, Era 1, before Harmony takes over. So
obviously,
pre Era 1,
right,
up until the end of Era 1.
Right. Major spoilers for everything, as always.
Of course, as we honestly just need to record a stock spoiler warning and just stick it at the beginning of every episode.
Yes, and we should also get shirts that say just major spoilers.
Yeah. We'll wear them around.
Well, one of us can have major spoilers and one of us can have captain spoilers.
I want to be Admiral spoilers.
Admiral's cool too. Admiral spoilers. Go to a car convention, get real confused. Admiral Spoilers, is that a company?
That reminds me
of... You make good spoilers?
That reminds me of a picture that I saw actually very recently on my friend's Facebook that said Obi-Wan Kenobi spoilers. And it has a car spoiler with a picture of Obi-Wan Kenobi on it.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Brilliant.
So.
Regardless. Great first 2 episodes, if you haven't seen them.
Yeah,
by the way.
Fantastic. Episode 2 should be coming out soon.
Episode 2 did come out. They released 1 and 2 at the same time.
Oh, did you release 1 and 2 at the same time?
Of the Kenobi show?
No. Sorry, I thought we were talking about the podcast.
No.
Oh, okay. The episodes of Kenobi. I have not seen them yet.
Okay. Well, there you go. Because they were going to release them on Wednesday. The first one on Wednesday. And
gotcha.
Then they were like, about a month before, they were like, okay, we're going to push it to Friday, but we're going to release 2.
I wonder why. It seems like they'd already have it finished by now, so...
You think, like, final edits and stuff.
I guess. Anyway.
Oh, you know what it was? I think they had planned, because on Thursday was the Star Wars celebration in Anaheim, where they had a bunch of people come talk, and they revealed a bunch of the shows coming out next year, the Lego, the video games. So they did that, and then they hyped it by having Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen.
Gotcha.
And like, tonight, you get to watch the first 2.
Okay.
Anyways, so that's probably why.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Somebody was like, "We'll get more people if we just push it 2 days, whatever."
Yeah. So anyway, back to the
podcast.
Back to the podcast. So Scadrial, major spoilers as always.
Era 1, including Secret History.
Yes. We'll be discussing basically everything that goes on during that era. So we can even discuss 11th Metal.
Yes, from earrings to edgelords.
So I suppose we should start pre-book 1.
Pre-book 1. And maybe this was a question for before that. As I mentioned, as we talked about earlier, we're going to really be talking about how we view the book.
Yes.
While this pre-bit will be a little more, this is what happened. When we actually talk about the books, we are not going to talk about this happened and this happened and this happened.
Right,
we are going to be talking about how we enjoyed the book and didn't enjoy certain aspects while putting it on a backdrop of this is the general flow of the book.
Right.
So.
Because we will be potentially, probably after we get through all of the different planets of the Cosmere and their magic systems and all of that, we may actually start doing a reread.
Probably.
And discussing the book as we read through them.
Yeah.
Especially as we wait for more books to come out so that we have actually more Cosmere things to discuss.
During drier Sanderson years.
Yes.
When we have a Sander drought.
Yes, exactly. But this will not be that. We will be discussing the general flow of the books, what we liked about them, and general things about Scadrial so that people know what like the political climb was and things like that. We want to discuss the Cosmere, but it will discuss our own points on the book and what we thought about the flow of the story and events that come. So
and something that this may feel different than when we do this for Era 2 or when we do this for Roshar or other books, but Mistborn, Sanderson was really upfront with almost every aspect of it.
Yeah, he was. It's not necessarily as much of a drip feed as some of the others.
Right.
Like Stormlight Archive's definitely a drip feed.
Yes.
Until the Sanderlanche at the end of the book, of course.
Right.
But you really it comes in bits and pieces. But no, you're right. In Mistborn, he was pretty upfront, and Kelsier serves that purpose.
That's true.
Of course. He comes in and he right after Vin is discovered, he basically lays out there's a bunch of different metals, they all grant different powers, etc., etc.
Right.
However, we may want to move this later, and we may want to actually start pre-Era 1.
Well, we can just segue into but there are a few things that would be useful to know.
Ah, yes. Yeah, that's true. There are a few things not revealed in the books or really revealed in other books. And potentially also interviews with him and things like that.
So we'll hit those first. You can start, because I can't think of any.
Well, obviously we know that pre-Era 1, Scadrial was like most worlds in the Cosmere.
Right.
With green grass, or green plants, flowers...
A blue sky,
etc., etc. Habitable zone of the solar system.
Right. Goldilocks zone.
Yeah, the Goldilocks zone. And so... And of course, that's part of what Kelsier is working towards, is getting back to that, because he has that picture from...
That's true.
What was her name?
Mare.
Yeah, he has that picture from Mare that shows the world as it was at one time.
Yes.
Which actually, that's a good question. Do we have a... Well, what's his name?
Sazed.
No. The God Emperor. The God King...
Lord Ruler?
The Lord Ruler. He's been ruling for 1,000 years, right?
That's correct.
So, clearly, it's... Which makes me wonder about the... Well, okay, clearly, I guess we know that some of the people existed before that point, because we don't get to Okay, actually, thought that just a thing I just remembered.
A thing you just remembered.
So we know that the Lord Ruler stagnated technological development.
That is correct.
So we know that people had roughly the technology that they have in the Final Empire. They've had that for about 1,000 years.
Sure.
So we got basically a time stop.
Right.
At medieval England, roughly medieval England, like era technology. I'm not going to say it's that, architecture or whatever, but it's about that technological level. And then it's just been stuck there for 1,000 years.
Sure.
So that's also a thing to mention, is the fact that, like, it's even though the Lord Ruler has been ruling for 1,000 years, it does not mean that 1,000 years of technological development has happened since he took over. It's exactly the opposite. So that can't, if we're thinking in the linear time of most stories, that can be a little misleading.
That's true.
But we know that a guy, and we'll discuss this in book 2, but we know that a guy went on a quest, was killed by one of his companions, that companion took the power from the well, and fucked up the world.
Yes. In an attempt to save it.
Sort of, yeah. I mean, yes.
Like,
although when you read the stories, I don't necessarily think that companion had the intention of saving the world. I think he wanted to take the power, and after he took the power, he found out what the state of the world was.
Yeah, right, and so the trick with the first era is that the first book itself is almost wholly contained.
Almost,
yes. You have a discrete evil.
Right.
Which is the Lord Ruler.
Right, you have the Lord Ruler and the Final
and
Empire.
Cronies,
yeah.
Which we can talk about how badass Inquisitors are.
Yes.
And then in books 2 and 3, it is truly revealed, like what the Lord Ruler says at the end of book 1, which is, you've screwed up, you've ruined the world.
Right.
Is accurate, and he really wasn't evil per se. He was going about stuff in
an evil way.
Not the right way.
Yeah. He did become a tyrannical ruler, even if he wasn't explicitly set out to be evil.
Yeah, but it was all for the greater good, right?
I mean, ask the terrorist people about that and we'll talk.
It's all for the greater good. It's all for the
greater... I think...
It was greater good.
Right. Well, and it's also the creation of the Mistborn.
Right.
And allomancy in general.
Yes, that was a whole thing. That started when the Mist started.
Right. Which is when...
After he used the power.
Right.
So Rashik was the Terrace.
Yes.
That was traveling along with the... Is it Alendi?
That sounds right, because I think that's what Elendil... No, Elend was the...
Yeah.
Was it Alendi?
Probably not. We can
Google.
To Google. Ultimately, when you take the first 3 books as a whole, the discussion about what happens on Scadrial becomes a lot more disjointed. Thanks, Rashik.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Rabzine and the Anamnesor.
What?
Well, okay. The Hero of Ages, also called Rabzine and the Anamnesor, was a prophesied savior who would supposedly take the power from the Well of Ascension to use it to save the world.
Right. But who's the character?
Right. Hold on, let me see. Yeah, Alendi, but with an A.
Ah.
So it was Alendi, but it was Alendi, not Elendi.
Alendi. Couldn't believe I pulled that one out of my head.
So interestingly, though, that we have Alendi and then Elend.
Which I'm sure is either coincidence or Sanderson was just like, here's a name.
Or the fact that, people would take names of heroes and give it to their children as kind of...
Sure.
Hopefully seeing them do similar things.
Right.
So, anyway, regardless. So yeah, Alendi goes with the terrorist people to the Well of Ascension. Is killed?
Rashik kills him.
Yeah, Rashik kills him, takes the power for himself, fucks up the world.
In an attempt to save it from ruin.
Sort of. So on that front, we never actually see his interaction with Ruin.
Right.
We never actually see that, but we do see sort of a mirror of it in the last book when Vin goes up against Ruin.
Right.
So I'm actually not going to say that I don't think that Rashik did what he did to save the world from Ruin. I think he did what he did because he was kind of fucking around with the power that he now had, and he didn't quite know what to do with it. And then he kind of fucked up the world, and then Ruin blocked him.
So if we go back further to Ruin and Preservation, arrive at what will be Scadrial.
Right.
And Ruin's like, I want humans as pets. No, he's not like that. Preservation was like, hey, let's make humans.
Right.
Everyone's like, yeah, okay. Preservation gave more of himself than Ruin did to
Right.
make the humans.
Yes.
Meaning that Ruin had more power over the planet.
Right.
Which is where I am saying that the Ruin is the deepness that Rashik was trying to prevent.
I agree. That much I agree with, yes.
Did Rashik go about it in the right way? No.
No, but I do agree that he... But what I'm saying is that I think the actual process of the world becoming the way it is, with the ash mounts and stuff, is because he has this power. He now has Preservation's power.
Right.
And then he starts to try to change the world in some form or fashion.
Right.
And
specifically to fight the deepness.
Right, specifically to fight the deepness.
And he moves the planet closer to the sun.
Right.
Which makes it too hot, which is why he creates the ash mounts.
Yes.
Then he makes the humans able to breathe the ash.
Right.
The ska more, and then he makes the ska, have higher reproduction rates.
Right.
And then he also creates the plants that live off of less sunlight.
Right.
And he creates bacteria to eat the ash.
But I think also the reason he couldn't fix the world was because at that point, after he found out the truth about everything,
yes,
I think the reason he couldn't change the world any more so than he did was because Ruin was blocking.
Back.
Yeah. So, because after he found out everything, he... If there had been no force pushing back against me, he could just set the planet back the way that it was before.
Exactly.
But
if he had done that, we wouldn't get that beautiful end passage with Sazed tapping all of his religious knowledge.
Yes, I will say, though, that, like, one of the things... So if Brandon ever buys back all the licenses for his shit...
Which I believe he has Mistborn.
Okay. If he ever creates an anime, which Mistborn would definitely work as an anime. Same as...
would be an anime.
Well, okay, here's the thing I will say about that. Interestingly, I think that Elantris would not work as an anime.
Okay.
There's so little action in it until you hit the very, very end that, like, I'm not going to say it's impossible. And, of course, if they did the rest of the series as an anime, they would probably have to do Elantris as an anime. But I don't know. The pacing of it, my brain... Okay, here's the thing. Here's my basis for this. In my brain, when I was reading Mistborn, there was enough anime-esque description in there that it automatically became an anime in my head. Like, that is just my head, how my head presented it. Same with Stormlight Archives. Like, the stuff that Kaladin does is... I mean, it's straight fucking anime. Like... Like the way that he lands with the sword, with the glyphs on it, after he become Night Radiant. Anyway, regardless, Elantris, my brain would not do that. It would not.
We'd have to go into a philosophical discussion about what makes anime an anime, and while I do think a large part of that is static scenes that static characters that have motion behind them.
Right.
Which is very, Goku when he powers up, Deku when he powers up. A lot of these power-up moments where literally the character is just standing there and all the motion around them is the background. While that can make an anime, if you look at Ghibli movies.
Right, and there are slice of life animes,
Right.
don't get me wrong.
Right.
But, I don't know, the pacing of Elantris... Okay, here's the thing. Of course, there are different genres of anime.
Of course.
So you have, like, the shonen anime, which are geared towards boys, and it's Yu-Gi-Oh!, it's your Dragon Ball Z's, it's your... Naruto's,
Bleach,
right, Bleach,
My Hero Academia,
etc.,
Right.
etc. And then you have shoujo, which are geared towards girls, which are your magical girl animes, so Sailor Moon, Card Captors, not Angel Beats, what's the one that I'm thinking of? Angelic Lair.
Sure.
A lot of the Clamp ones, so like Chobits,
Sure.
Card Captors, Clover, etc., etc. And then, of course, you do have the slice of life ones. I will say, but you do notice trope pacings throughout
Sure.
most animes.
Yeah.
There is a pacing, a story beat pacing that they tend to follow.
Sure.
And it can vary between genres of anime, because like shoujo, you're going to have a protagonist, they're probably going to have some sort of secret power that they're going to have to master. Look at every fucking shoujo in existence.
Yeah.
Naruto with the nine-tailed fox, Bleach with his Reaper form.
The
death form thing that he has. Deku with his
All for One.
The All for One. Even Jujutsu Kaisen with the demon sitting inside him, which is not necessarily following the pacing of a traditional shoujo. That's actually interesting to me.
Shoujo or shonen?
Shoujo.
Oh.
No, shonen. Sorry, you're right. Shonen. Shit.
It's all good.
I was mixing up my terms.
No
Shonen,
worries.
yeah. Not following the traditional pacing of a shonen.
No.
Because so far, like, the demon has had one appearance where he helped the hero.
Yeah.
In almost a completely not altruistic fashion, but without fucking over the hero, which was when, what's his name, that can manipulate his body.
It's been a while.
Yeah, you know who I'm talking about. The dude who can manipulate his soul so he can change the shape of his body. White hair.
Oh. The white-haired dude?
Yeah, the white-haired dude. The one that can change the shape of his body.
He can change the shape of his body?
And other people's bodies.
Huh.
Like, he touches them, and they get all fucked up, and he transforms them into demon-looking things originally. He has, like, stitches all over him.
Oh, the bad guy.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, he's a bad guy at the moment, but...
I was thinking of the white-haired good guy.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Not
see where my confusion was.
Yeah, no, I see where your confusion was. No, the white-haired antagonist.
Yes.
Where he tries to fuck with, the main character's body, and then he is like, no.
Right. Anyways.
Regardless,
so
there's
Elantris,
pacing of those.
Right.
And Elantris doesn't... The pacing of Elantris... Okay, here's the thing that I don't see a lot, and it may be because I don't watch these kinds of things.
Okay.
Because there's only one that comes to mind that even slightly fits this. But we don't see a lot of political intrigue animes.
No.
Death Note is the only one that even comes kind of close in my brain.
Fair.
And I didn't even see much of Death Note. It was...
It's pretty good.
Yeah, that's fine. Anyway, regardless. And that's the thing. Elantris is a lot of political intrigue. Until you hit the end, and, a lot more action occurs, and we'll get there when we cover Elantris. So, it's a lot of political and philosophical intrigue.
Yeah.
And I think that would be difficult to do an anime around.
It would, if you just exaggerated the facial expressions and movements of characters from Elantris, and you had it verbatim what the character said, I think it would be just fine.
Maybe.
I think it'd be fine. Because ultimately Elantris is fine.
It is. No, I'm not saying Elantris is a bad story by any means.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, Elantris is good.
But I think that translating it into an anime would... Let me say this. I don't think it can't be done, obviously.
Right.
I think it might feel weird. I think if we were going to do Elantris as an anime, it would absolutely need to come after pretty much every other thing releases an anime.
That's fair.
So that we're already familiar with the style, and we know that it is connected to Sanderson's books, and so we're like, well, we're now going to see Elantris, so the pacing won't fuck us over, or won't feel so weird.
That's fair.
Because I think, well, and if you see this, and Mistborn is actually, and I know we're going off on a tangent here, but what the fuck ever, it doesn't matter. This is our podcast, we can do what we like.
We could relabel this as Sanderson books as animes.
Or at least we can make that a section.
Yeah.
So here's the thing.
Okay.
As Sanderson produces more books,
yeah,
I think we see more and more of an anime style entering his writing style. Because if you look at Elantris, it was his first published book.
Sure.
A lot of political intrigue, a lot of emotional and philosophical intrigue, definitely some action at the end with...
But really, not really. It was more like static moments. There wasn't just, other than the dude using the power of dance to fight off people.
Right.
The power of dance.
Yeah. Like, the most anime thing about that book is drawing the Aeons in the
right.
air. Like,
that would work.
Yeah.
Especially if you have, like, in my head, I can see it happening. We could agree that Elantris could happen as an anime.
Yes.
It would be probably the best medium. I think if you took the average of what would be the best medium for all of Sanderson books, I do agree personally that it would be anime.
Or something like a kind of twist on anime like what Castlevania was.
Sure.
Yeah, like that sure. I could also see
yes.
definitely working.
Right. And the reason I say that is because, and I'll preface this by saying I believe Sanderson sees his stuff as he would want live action.
Oh, interesting.
I believe that's what he said. I could be putting
Weird,
words in his
because
mouth.
I'm not saying you're wrong, but the way that he writes, especially Stormlight Archives, I don't think you'd get the right emotional impact if you did live action.
I agree with that, and this is maybe something that once we're in the upper echelons of Sandersonian favor,
right, we can ask him about.
We can sit down at a nice vegan steak dinner,
right,
and discuss. No, but he has said that at one of his questions,
right,
YouTube
right.
Video, somebody asked him, what do you see this as? And he's like, a lot of people say anime. I don't really agree with that. And I was like, okay, fine, whatever. But
right, and I mean, of course, he's allowed to see his stories in whatever way he wants. Absolutely.
I will always advocate for animation over live action for book adaptations, because a lot of people like TV shows for adaptations because you get more stuff.
And I think that I completely agree with that. I think that whether it's live action or animated,
you get more.
You get more, and with the pacing of books, you need that longer storytelling process to adapt it properly.
Building off of that, some books, when you try to create the script and then do an animated version of it,
right,
they are going to take forever.
Yes.
And I'm talking like a decade, 2 decades.
Right.
If you do it animated, it does not matter as much who is acting the part, because voice actors are trained in such a way that you should be able, if one of them unfortunately leaves or passes away, you should be able to find a replacement close enough.
True. Yeah. Well, like Dumbledore with the Harry Potter
exactly.
movies.
So it wouldn't be that drastic of a change. Like,
right.
Obviously, I love both Dumbledores.
Yeah.
Grew up with them. It doesn't matter. That'd be fine in a live action too, but I think if it was a long enough time, you'd see more of those changes. On top of that, characters in Sanderson books, main characters, tend to be younger.
And they tend not to age due to...
Right.
The...
Epicanthic faults.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
are indicative of Asian history.
Right.
And while some may have dark skin, the whole thing with the Alethi is they are dark-skinned, dark-haired, with epicanthic folds and light eyes. Obviously, you can mess with them digitally however you want.
Right, but doing that animated is much easier.
Right. On top of that, and maybe the epicanthic folds would be difficult to do in anime because the anime already
it's a very stylized eye.
Right.
Which is why I think that actually I will revise and not say anime, but something like the Castlevania style.
Okay.
Where much more American design aspects to some extent, but you definitely still have the action and flow of battle and defying of physics that comes with a traditional anime fighting style.
Absolutely. Now and the Alethi were the first. Just the skin color and epicanthic folds. Let's take the Thalens. You could use prosthetics to create the extra eye. The
the eyebrow. Yeah, the.
You could definitely do prosthetics for the nails of the Herdasians and the teeth of the rock. Who's
the. I know what you're talking about. The people that live up in the mountains.
Yes. Height differences. The Alethi are freakishly tall.
Yes.
All of these things could come across easily in an animated show.
It's true.
I believe it wouldn't be impossible. It would be more difficult and may not be as done well in a live action.
I agree.
And if you're going to do Stormlight as an animated, you might as well do the rest of it.
Well, and especially, and this is something I've actually brought up to you before. The Spren.
Yes.
Would look very weird CGI'd around live action people.
They would.
And so if you put it in an anime style, it honestly will look much more natural.
It would. You could do all of the transformations that you would do in CGI with them.
Right.
They get larger, smaller, change shape.
Right. And, their little appearance in the real world around people experiencing strong emotions, like pain Spren. The little hands reaching up. Like, I can already see that in my brain, how that would look like a little anime. Like, little hands grasping and everything like that. And I think that would look... It'd be able to be done in live action, don't get me wrong.
Absolutely. And it could look really cool.
It could look really cool. I still think it would look weird compared to something done in more of an anime style.
And the production... The budget and the length of production versus how much you get out. You would need to scale, like, obviously Sanderson is really good at describing things, and you wouldn't need all of those descriptions, so you can take a good chunk of the length out of the book to consider for what you would need for the script and that kind of thing. But you could get more out of animation, even if you did hour-long, 2-hour-long episodes.
Right.
Then it would be live action. It would take a much longer process.
I'm really hoping that if they do a series, however, they call it Stormlight Archives and not The Way of Kings.
Yes.
Because I will freely admit, I didn't much care about either one that I have seen this trend in so far, but Game of Thrones and Shadow and Bone.
Are they both named after their first book?
Yeah. Game of Thrones was originally called A Song of Ice and Fire. That's the series name.
Right.
But Game of Thrones was just named after the first book, The Game of Thrones.
Yes.
And then Shadow and Bone is actually called the, whatever their mages are called. Oh, fuck, this is going to bother me. Hold on.
While you look that up.
They have like mage type things, and that's what the verse is called.
We'll do a pause here, because I need to use a manual.
No, I don't want the series, I want the book. So it's called the Grishaverse.
Yes.
Because the Grisha are the mage-type characters from that, and the Grishaverse is... Now, I'll agree Shadow and Bone is probably a better name than Grishaverse for the show.
I will say that.
But that said, I think that calling it Stormlight Archives would be better than Way of Kings.
Yes. And they could even go so far as to make each season have its own name.
That's true. And
Stormlight
that's something
Archives, Way of Kings.
Yeah, that is actually something that I have not seen a TV series do yet, and would be kind of interested to do so, because movies have zero issue with that.
Right.
Because, like, if you see the Lord of the Rings movies, you have Fellowship of the Ring, you have The Two Towers, and then you have
Return of the King.
Return of the King, and all the movies are named after their respective book that they
Right.
cover. And so I would be interested to see a TV series do that.
I agree.
Also, if you did it with an anime, you could have like an anime style opening, and because anime style openings are known to change as the season progresses, you could change them to fit each of the books and the events going on in those books.
Right. And even doing the different parts of each book.
Right.
Which...
Ooh, and you could have like... So, okay, so here's the thing that I will say.
Yes.
I think that you would actually have to have multiple seasons per book. And here's the reason why.
Yes.
One, you have the flipped perspective.
Absolutely.
Like in the first book, it goes between Kaladin, Dalinar, and Shallan.
Is Dalinar first?
Yeah, he's in... The...
Oh, are you talking about book 1 of book 1? Part 1 of book 1?
No, I'm just talking about book 1.
Then you also get Adolin.
Yeah, but his
briefly.
Yeah, his is small enough that I don't think you'd have to include his point of view necessarily.
Knowing that his point of view becomes way more important later, you might as well throw it in there.
But we also have the interludes.
Yes.
And so I think we might actually just have to title this episode.
Yes.
Should the should the Sanderson universe be anime?
Yeah. Briefly, this episode was about to be a discussion of Scadrial and the Mistborn Era 1 as a whole, but this has quickly devolved into discussions about live action versus anime across different
adaptations of the different Sanderson novels
and other fantasy novels.
Yes.
So forgive us for misleading you at the beginning, and we will be doing Scadrial and our thoughts on it at some point in the future.
Yes.
Back to the discussion.
Back to the discussion.
Cut that to the
So, yeah, you can just cut that to the beginning. So, I think that... I mean, I honestly... While I would be thrilled to see Stormlight Archives come out in any form of media...
Absolutely.
I honestly, budget-wise, style-wise, etc., I do not see live action being the best way to do it.
No.
And even with Mistborn, like, the way they launch themselves through the mist, like in my brain, I see Vin launching herself backwards through the mist with that mist cloak, you know,
right.
going out around her, and her, like, flying backward. And it's an anime in my brain.
Yeah.
It's an anime style in my brain, because I don't think a live action would be as dynamic. And that's the thing that anime excels at, is that it's dynamism.
Right.
It's that dynamic action, and the fact that you don't have to make characters look traditionally realistic to have their personalities come across.
That's right.
Like, if you look at, I mean, there has been so many where, like, the big buff characters are literally like 2 or 3 times as big as the main character.
Right.
But it doesn't look weird because everything's stylized.
Right.
And so you could have Rock be this, like, big hulking dude that, like, has a hand as big as, like, one of the main character's shoulders or whatever.
You could.
And it would still look fine.
It would look fine.
Yeah, because, like...
I think with how the Stormlight Archive has the different characteristics for each race, I would like to see it more book specific, and not as stylized as that, but it would definitely be completely okay if they did that.
Well, I don't necessarily need it that stylized, but, like, you've seen Castle in the Sky, right? Laputa, Castle in the Sky?
I have.
Do you remember... How much do you remember about that? Okay. Do you remember the father of the boy? Or, like, the male caretaker of the boy? Or the big pirate dude? Okay, hold on. Let me pull up a scene for you to watch. We can cut this
Okay.
out, but I want to pull up a scene for you to watch on YouTube, if I can find it. Here we go.
Make your shirt explode. Hey, boss, show 'em what you're made of.
Something
Sure.
that style for rock, I think
Certainly,
would work.
certainly.
And that's clearly not human by any means. Like, they're clearly huge compared to the other people around them.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look all that odd because it's all stylized. All of it is stylized. So, and I think the airships and the what are the gemstone? Fabrials?
Fabrials.
The Fabrials. I think all of that would look great done in an animated style.
Absolutely.
Versus a live action.
Yeah.
Now see, Elantris, my brain always translated that as a live action, and so I wouldn't be upset to see Elantris as a live action.
Anytime I've read or listened to the books, it's been, my head just views it as a live action. Just
Is that including Way of Kings?
everything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Now, when I'm thinking about it, I'm saying those would be better as anime. Given where we are in terms of Marvel doing what they're doing, Star Wars doing what they're doing, I could also argue that live adaptations would be the way to go, given the treatment of movies and TV shows as options.
Here is the argument that I will make against that.
Okay.
Personally, we can kind of play
sure.
a devil's advocate thing here. If you look at what Marvel has done,
Uh-huh.
and it's admirable. Don't get me wrong. I'm
It's
not
amazing,
arguing
yeah.
that by any means, but they definitely had to change aspects of the costume to fit a real person versus what you see in the comics.
Sure.
Because even Spider-Man, if you see Spider-Man, the reason the Spider-Man himself, not Peter Parker, but Spider-Man, is almost entirely CGI, is that his costume does not work if you put it on a real person.
Okay.
It will fold in weird ways, it will
Right.
shadow over itself in weird ways, it will not look appropriate.
Right.
And I think when you have things like the shard armor or shard plate and the shard blades, especially when you get into that further thing with the shard plate being not, when you get into Kaladin's shard plate in book 4,
Sure.
I think they would have to make changes that I would not necessarily be entirely happy with.
It would almost, those parts of it would almost certainly have to be CGI'd.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But even then, to work on a typically human build, I think it would look... I think compromises would have to be made.
Right. Right. Which is where you would have to get rid of some of those changes that make Rosharan subspecies of human.
Yes.
Say subspecies, because
No, I know what you're saying, though. The mutations of the humans on
Right.
Roshar. Because,
other than
anime
the
or
shit of
animation,
normal. Yeah.
you can make the eyebrows of
A foot long. Yeah.
a foot long and make it look I mean, it would look weird, but no weirder than most anime
Yeah.
hairstyles are.
Right.
Live action, that'd look really funky.
It would likely, and just the eyebrows themselves would be the most normal part of it.
Right.
Other than the Alethi just looking like dark-skinned Asian people.
Right.
That should be freakishly tall.
Yeah.
As we've stated, we'll be happy with any kind of live adaptation. assuming it doesn't go the route of Aragon.
Oh God, yeah. Don't get me started on that.
But you could imagine maybe a mix of animated and live action. I think.
No,
You're shaking your
no,
head. You're shaking
no.
your head.
I mean, unless you're splitting the series up, but if you're gonna have animation and live action in the same scene,
No.
oh,
No,
okay,
no. I am saying. So, bear with me.
right,
Elantris, live action.
okay,
Mistborn Era 1, live action movies. Mistborn Era 2, live action serialized TV. You could add more Wax and Wane adventures in, ad nauseum.
yeah. Okay, so what about
Stormlight, animated.
okay? What about Warbreaker?
Warbreaker, given the colors of everything, I'd say animated.
Yeah, and that's another thing is that Warbreaker, if you're, and this actually kind of happens with Dawnshard as well in Stormlight Archives, is that with the variety of colors that you see, and all of that, and the like imbuing of items and things like that, I think animated, you'd have to go animated for that. I think it would look very weird on CGI, because even if you look at like, okay, let's take the carpet from Aladdin.
Okay.
Versus the cape from Doctor Strange.
Okay.
I'm not saying the cape from Doctor Strange was bad.
No.
I'm definitely going to say it looked weird.
That's fair.
Like, it wasn't bad.
Because of the crispness of movies and television now,
Yes.
while CGI has improved, visually it has detracted,
Yes.
unfortunately.
Unfortunately. I think that animated, you get a certain... Well, okay, let's look at Aladdin. Actually, perfect example. Let's look at Aladdin animated versus Aladdin live action.
Sure.
If you look at the two, and you pull a comparable scene,
Sure.
Aladdin animated looks much more dynamic than its live action counterpart.
I agree.
I'm not saying that the live action remake was bad. I think it was bad for the reasons it was made. That's a different discussion entirely.
Sure.
But, and I think if we want the emotional impact that the Sanderson books are supposed to pull, I think you have to go animated for the high action things like Stormlight Archives and Mistborn, because the powers, the emotional pull, because the thing is that especially with Mistborn, or not Mistborn, especially with Stormlight Archives, less so with Mistborn, but it's still there. You have a lot of emotional drive behind the powers that present.
Okay.
Kaladin is a Windrunner, and the fact that he is a Windrunner plays into his personality. It plays into his decisions. It like, even if he doesn't know it yet, it is his entire emotional drive through the book.
Sure.
His drive to protect, his drive to ensure the safety of, that's his entire emotional drive through, like, the first, well, all the books, to
Right.
be perfectly honest. All of them. And his powers are tied to that. Irrevocably, thank you.
Irrevocably.
Yes. Irrevocably is right, but anyway.
Right.
So...
I'll say it how I want to.
So, and Mistborn to some extent as well, because you have the snap.
Right.
And, that's what allows Mistborn to become Mistborn. Or even Mistings, I would assume. I would assume they have a snap as well.
That's correct.
So, and I mean, like, the landing on your knees and screaming and watching the bursts of power. I've never seen a live action do that the same way that I have animated.
I've had both pull on my heartstrings.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying the live action can't. I will say that I've never seen a live action put the emotional impact into its magic system the way I've seen animated series, especially anime, do it.
Captain America when he grabs Thor's hammer in Endgame.
Right, but that's a single moment
That's
versus an entire series.
Okay, fair.
Because, like, Thor grabbing the hammer... Don't get me wrong, Thor's powers are cool.
Yeah.
But, and like, yes, while he needs to grow as a person to wield the hammer, his use of the magic doesn't have a lot of emotion behind it.
Okay.
His use of calling down a lightning bolts.
Right.
And I think the thing about the stylized faces of anime is that you can show that emotional aspect on their faces because they're more stylized better from a distance. So you can see them use this massive magical ability and still see the emotion on their faces more than you can with a real live person.
I'd say Stranger Things does a pretty good job
Yeah,
of that.
I won't deny. Stranger Things does. But if you also see her power, it's mostly invisible.
That's fair.
It doesn't have a lot of particle effects going on with
That's
it.
true. That's true.
And the shard blades are definitely going to need particle effects.
Yeah, that's true.
And the shard plates. And to be fair, I could see maybe doing Mistborn, because most of Mistborn's abilities are invisible.
They are.
It's improved physical, the emotional manipulation is invisible, the push on metal is invisible.
If they don't take it too seriously, which I'd hope they didn't.
Right.
They could have a moment where Kelsier is showing her, okay, the blue lines
Oh,
exist.
yeah.
So you would see momentarily from Vin's point of view, the camera angle would be behind Vin, and you'd see her turn it on, and you see these blue lines, and then you'd switch to right behind Kelsier, and he would see nothing.
Right.
And you'd switch back, because they have ways of making it obvious that this person can see these things,
right.
This person can't.
Yeah.
So that's, because that is, the blue lines is really the only part that becomes, in my head, difficult for live action to do regularly, but drawing blue line CGI, it would be the same kind of thing. Like, you couldn't show every connection to every single metal.
No, you wouldn't want to. It'd become a mess.
Or live action.
It'd become a mess. I think, and like, I will say though, that it would look. The one thing I can say that would look much cooler in an anime style thing will be the use of adium.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it can't work in CGI.
Right.
Of course it can.
It would. The burning of atium would be easier to do and probably look better in an anime version or an animated version.
Right.
But it would also be really cool if they did it in a way that looked natural-esque, to film that stunt person doing all of the different things.
Right.
It would obviously take a lot, but that's kind of the point of trying to do a live action is like, yes, this is a large amount of effort, but we want to make it look good. But if there was a mix of live action and animated, and we took Star Wars as a jumping off point,
right,
they have been very successful in taking the animated character and bringing it to live action.
And I'm not going to deny, I think it can be done.
So for Xyle, if we did a live action or whatever, or Hoyd.
Right.
Obviously Hoyd. So if we take Hoyd,
right,
he's live action in Elantris and Mistborn, and then he's animated, as long as you get the same person to voice it,
it's not an issue.
It's not an issue.
Yeah, no, I agree. I still think that I would like to see consistent style for all of the series.
That's fair.
Especially because, okay, it would be a pain in the ass to do a live action version of. Just because of...
Six of the Dusk.
Well, yes, but no, that's not what I was thinking of. White Sand.
Yeah.
Because it's a graphic novel.
Well.
So...
but they...
I'm not saying they haven't done it. Clearly Marvel comic, yeah. But of course, we can't say that Tom Holland is a perfect representation of any of the Peter Parkers.
No.
Nor was Tobey Maguire, nor was Andrew Garfield.
No. But their powers combined.
But you get something like Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
And suddenly you have perfect representations of that Peter Parker.
You're not wrong.
Or Miles Morales.
Right.
In the case of that character.
Right. Some non-movie, non-watching bits of it. If you have live action, you do get the whole kit and caboodle of meeting the actor in person at a Comic-Con or something like that.
Fair.
You get the whole...
But I mean, voice actors have
atmosphere.
also been getting a lot of prominence
You do, yeah.
recently.
But, yes.
Especially with the introduction of anime into the American media.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people, like, throw up, like,
Gross.
like, thank you. Basically, kind of thank you for your service things to voice actors who have passed away. Like,
Sure.
And, showing all the characters that they
Yeah.
brought to life.
And you can still meet them and still get, their autograph. And which reminds me, did I tell you about Fan Expo?
Yes, you said it was coming in August?
No, it's June Father's Day weekend, the 17th, 18th, 19th. Nathan Fillion.
Oh, right, yes.
And the Hobbits.
You didn't tell me about the
No,
Hobbits.
all four of the actors are going to
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Elijah Woods and
Yeah.
all of that.
And it's like $300 if you want a picture with all of them.
Oof.
Tempting.
I do not have... as much as I love those movies, I do not have enough of a drive to get a picture with them and pay $300 for it.
Or you could get an autograph. You could get an autograph of all four of them for $300-something.
Yeah, I like them, don't get me wrong, but I do not have that.
One by themselves is like 60 or 80.
That's not terrible.
It's
but...
not. If you have anyways.
Yeah.
And of course a bunch of voice actors, because here in DFW we have Funimation.
Right.
So many of those voice actors go to things like this.
We'll have Zuko voicing Kaladin. Wouldn't necessarily be a terrible option.
It wouldn't
to
be a
honest.
terrible option.
Johnny Bosco? That's the voice actor's name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Johnny Bosco was the one who voiced Zuko.
I don't know. I feel like... Yeah. I always imagine his voice deeper. I mean, obviously Michael Kramer's voice is
Yeah.
that voice for me, which... No. So
Right.
I'm always going to have an issue.
Any voice
issue.
actor, yeah.
Yeah. But of course, I mean, once we see it on...
Okay, so Dalinar.
Are we fan casting now?
Yes.
Okay.
Who was the one that voiced Knuckles?
Idris Elba.
Yes. Idris Elba.
Idris Elba.
For Idris Elba, whatever his name is, for Dalinar.
I would put him for the Stormfather myself.
That would also work. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, man. So many good voice actors. So many good actors in general.
Right. Although, it would be a series that would have... This completely off of Cosmere, but whatever.
Sure.
It's a series that would have a lot of particle effects, but I think would have to be live action and could not be done animated?
Dresden Files.
Yes. I don't think that would work.
So my argument for it being animated would be James Marsters voicing Harry.
Fair.
That is my only thing.
Fair.
That is it. That is
Fair.
the one.
I can...
And Tutu.
Although, what he could... who he could voice and still have it be a live action?
Ebenezer.
No, actually.
And
I was going to say Bob the Skull.
Oh, sure. Yes, absolutely.
I was actually not a fan of how they did Bob the Skull in the live action series.
I have never partaken.
They had him be a real person.
Yeah.
Like they had him be a
I heard
projection of
that.
a human.
I heard that.
And I get it.
Yeah.
But I think if you have a talented enough voice actor, you don't need to have that be the case.
No. You just need some glowing eyes.
Yes.
In a skull.
And you have them pulse a little bit with the words.
Yeah.
But... Okay, so, fan voice casting. Shalon... The problem is I don't know voice actors that much. I know characters,
right.
But I don't necessarily know the voice
to,
actors behind them.
Feel free to toss out the...
Yeah. I would say, actually, okay, while she may have had an accent, and I don't know if that accent was the natural actor's accent, or an accent that she was putting on for the show, but the one who did the mage in Castlevania.
I never watched it.
Oh, you... My dude! I don't know if that's her natural accent or not.
Right.
Where if it is, that might need to be changed, but...
Yeah, it would be useful to see different accents all speaking Alethi.
Yeah, it would be. Alethi would have to be English, I think.
I think so.
Just because, as much as I am all for making it more... Well, it's not a real language. That's the
Right.
thing. Like, his use of gancho.
Right.
Like, that's... Though I would say that as much as I love him being Australian in the books, I think going with Sanderson's original idea of the accents would be a good idea. Like, having it be Spanish more than...
I mean, ultimately, I'd be fine with any adaptation of the books, given that Sanderson is the one producing it.
Yes.
Specifically. If it was somebody else...
That's true. I hope to see Dragonsteel Studios on the front of those movies rather than any other production studio for Hollywood.
Right. And if... I'm not great at fan casting, so I've never thought this person would be great for this. But going back to the live and animated mix...
Right.
If that happened, you could be producing quite a lot in a short amount of time.
It's true. Okay, so here's where we run into an issue.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Sanderson only has so many hours in the day.
Well, that, but also the fact of if you get to something like... Okay, so translating live action into animated is fine.
Yeah.
The opposite is a lot harder.
You mean like a character going from... Or what do you mean?
Yeah, well, so an animated character then being cast as a live action person.
Yes.
But if we know we have some characters traveling between series, Hoyd being one, obviously.
Right.
But, like, if we have a traditional... Okay. Trying to think. What's his name? Well, I guess that would not actually be that direction. But, like, clearly we're going to have the Stormlight and Mistborn worlds colliding.
Yeah.
At some point.
The great collab.
Right. So, at that point, would we make that an animated movie? Would we make that live action?
From what... Oh, God. I would go with my first gut instinct and say... If we did Stormlight animated, Mistborn live action, then if the series was Mistborn, it would still be live action. And indeed, any of the characters from Stormlight that end up in the Mistborn would need live action.
Right, and that could be a pain in the ass.
It could be, but...
Because then you run into that problem of...
It has not been a problem for Star Wars. There have... Cad Bane, Ahsoka, Bo-Katan have all started as animated characters, and they have found great actors and actresses.
Okay. However, I'm going to argue with you that, like, in the Star Wars universe, if you look at Ahsoka, she's almost barely human. Like, she has a face, and they needed an actress for the face, and don't get me wrong, they did choose a good one.
Right.
But so much of her is CGI, or prosthetics, I don't know entirely which.
Prosthetics.
Yeah. And...
Bo-Katan is human. It's Mandalorian.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying.
So while
but if you also look at Bo-Katan, she is traditional human. You don't have the Alethi issue of being weirdly tall, dark-skinned Asian people.
Well, you see what happens is that near the end of the animated Stormlight 10 is in the final, they start gaslighting us, and they bring the Alethi down to normal human size without us noticing. And then, yeah. But, I mean, it could.
And then they start sneaking in live action actors in the extras in Stormlight.
Absolutely. But
Because that wouldn't look obvious at all.
It could open up an avenue for underrepresented actors and actresses to get roles.
I won't disagree with you there. That is an option. Because you could have people of Middle Eastern descent.
Yeah.
Playing the Alethi. Because I think...
Middle Eastern or Asian.
Yeah, Middle Eastern or Asian descent. And so it would open up a lot of avenues for... Because you couldn't make them white.
No.
I mean, well, you shouldn't. You could.
And then
but let's not.
Pissed. Let's not go the route of the Avatar Last Airbender movie.
So yeah, no, I will give you that. That is the one big thing, is that you could get a lot more underrepresented actors into a major film/TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's throw this one out there. Motion capture CGI, all of it. Final Fantasy VII, Advent Children, and or Avatar, not The Last Airbender, the James Cameron movie. That was... Well, okay, throw out Advent Children. Just that was motion capture CGI.
Was Advent Children?
I don't think Advent Children was motion capture.
To be fair, Advent Children wouldn't necessarily be a terrible way to do it.
I agree.
It does have the dynamism.
Yes.
I don't know if it was motion capture. It may have been. I don't honestly know on that front.
I don't believe it was.
But I will freely admit that, yes.
The best fights in the Clone Wars series were motion capture, surprisingly. Not surprisingly.
But yeah, I mean, the Advent Children does have that dynamism while being 3D CGI.
When I was a kid, I could not determine whether it was CGI or real.
Oh, for Advent Children?
For Advent Children.
Yeah, now it's very obvious.
Yes, I was thoroughly confused.
Right.
So was my brother.
Fair.
Yeah.
I mean, it does look... For the time.
Right.
It was very indistinguishable,
right.
I'll freely admit.
420 or 480p
or something like that, yeah.
720.
But no, yeah, they could do it 3D, because that would have the dynamism, especially, like, I mean, if you look at that Sephiroth cloud fight at the end of Advent Children, and think about the Windrunner fights.
Yep.
Yeah, you could definitely have that.
And if you did motion capture...
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do we ever see Kaladin fight Moash? Like, fight Moash?
Not in the air.
Okay, I didn't think so.
No. He's in that, the cave where... Who's the mean, dude that took over their little town? Not took over, he was the... mayor? That Moash was ultimately angry at because that dude was the one that got his grandparents killed.
Oh, yeah, I know who you're talking about. The one that moved to the...
Rashon.
Yes, Rashon.
There we go.
Rasputin.
Rasputin. Jesus. No, Rashon was in that cave, and Moash and Kaladin were there too.
Right.
Renard did the thing with the light, which was badass. And Moash was like, "No, I could have been great." God, Moash is the worst.
Yeah, Moash is the worst. Have you seen that? So, YouTube keeps advertising a video to me, which is Moash, but only described using positive...
Yes, and it's Sanderson on stage.
Yes, and I have never watched it because part of me would be very angry to see Moash represented in that way.
You should watch it.
Should I?
I can tell you.
Is it? If it's worth watching, I'll watch it.
It's worth watching.
Okay.
It's hilarious.
Moash is a terrible fucking person.
It's,
like, Moash is the worst. Oh, God. Okay. So there's a thing that I don't want from a series of Brandon Sanderson's books being turned into movies. All the fangirls flocking to Moash as this damaged edgelord fucking character.
Well, the good thing is that Kaladin, as the damaged edgelord,
That's true. He does
Holes-
have the...
no, but like outside of joking, I've never seen anybody say Moash is.
No, I wouldn't, but I'm going to say with it exposed to a wider audience through a TV show,
Right.
the amount of villains I have seen loved by the fan base.
Yeah, that's true.
You
Yeah.
also get a lot of Moash Kaladin slash fics.
Yes, but those already exist, probably.
I'm sure they do, yeah.
So, not that I'm.
Oh boy.
It,
I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
I toss that out. I don't actively seek that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
out.
no,
So,
no do I.
it's
It's just a thought that entered my brain and now I'm sad.
that's fair.
Like, don't get me wrong, I have no issue with slash fics.
Oh yeah.
But it's kind of like the Harry Draco thing, like Watson and Sherlock. John Watson and Sherlock is John Locke.
Moving on from that.
It actually became... John Locke is the reason that so many people... Well, don't get me wrong. I have an issue with Moffat and doing what he did with the Sherlock series.
Fair.
Because they did queerbait. I'm not going to deny. They straight up queerbaited
Oh,
with a lot of their shit.
interesting.
Especially later on. And they've done that with a lot of Moffat's things. But on top of that, the belief in John Locke is the reason that so many people thought that after the last episode of Sherlock there was going to be a secret actual final episode. Oh, there's a whole thing. I'll send you a video on it.
Oh,
It's
God.
there's a whole thing that was surrounding the John Locke pairing that it was a mess.
Okay.
Yeah. Regardless, off of that tangent. So yes, while I could see, okay, here's the thing that I think, here's the compromises I think we would have to make if we were going to see a live action Stormlight Archives.
Sure.
There would have to be less, or it's not even there would have to be, there would be less Spren appearance.
I agree.
I just, whether it be from budget constraints or just directorial fiat, there would not be as much Spren appearance as there is in the books.
Right.
What would be interesting seeing live action, and I think they could do it, I don't think this would be an issue, and this isn't Stormlight Archives, this would be Mistborn, would be the Mistwraiths and the Cadron,
Sure.
which are same thing.
Sure.
Cadron?
Condra.
Khandra, thank you.
You're
I was
welcome.
like, wait a minute, I got that wrong.
It's okay.
I think the Khandra and the Mistwraiths would have an issue. Alright, not an issue, but I think they'd have to make an appearance, of course.
Right.
Which could be interesting, I'm not going to deny. I will freely admit in my brain they're appearing as anime-style drawn things.
Sure.
With the different bones and everything,
Yeah.
the human skulls, yeah, that's how my brain's translating it. I'm not saying it couldn't be done live action. But, okay, so here's one thing that I will say, though, is that I feel like the way that anime does mist and fog and people fighting in it, I think that would be much more interesting in an animated style fashion than it would in a live action.
Yeah.
Because if you look at Castle in the Sky, I think Naruto's had it.
Yeah. Fight with the ice dude. Sasuke and Naruto teamed up.
Right.
Finally.
Yeah, Zabuza.
Yeah.
And just the way that people appear from smoke and stuff in multiple series and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. In my brain, Elantris is the only one that ever translates to live action. I'm not saying it has to be that, But I'm saying that's the only one my brain translates into live action.
And I think the drawing of the Aeons would be a lot easier in animated.
True. I'm not going to deny that. And also the...
and just the Shaod as... when people take him by the Shaod as a whole, versus, if instead of doing prosthetics...
oh, yeah. Yeah, being able to draw them with the splotchy skin and everything. Also, the Saiyans.
Yeah.
The Saiyans as well would...
Yeah.
Have to... Or would I think look slightly better animated than CGI. Though they'd probably be one of the easier CGIs.
Yeah. I think Alantra's would be the best Ghibli-esque one. If you just did it in Ghibli style.
Yeah, I think all of them could be done Ghibli style.
Well, sure. But that one would likely match the tone of Ghibli.
I agree.
Than
I don't disagree with that because if you look at things like Totoro or even Spirited Away,
right,
it's more emotionally driven than it is action driven. Though definitely, if you look at the Paper Bird thing, Ghibli can do action
for sure.
So, Laputa is a better representation. There's legit fighting in that, and a big giant fuck ass laser.
Right.
So, I could definitely see if he got Studio Ghibli to do it. God damn.
That would
Miyazaki. If he got Miyazaki to animate them,
it would take forever.
It would take forever, but it'd be fucking gorgeous.
Yeah.
Although again, I wouldn't mind seeing the people who did the Castlevania series.
Sure.
Because you saw the fight scene with the mage there.
Right.
I think that there's actually there's something interesting.
There's lots of interesting things.
Well, yes.
There's lots of interesting things.
What are they called? Cyclops. But that kick that he does to drive the sword into his eye.
Yeah. That is pretty cool.
I don't know. I think it'd be the perfect style.
It would be. I think it would be.
And so I think, actually, the guy who voices Trevor wouldn't necessarily be bad for Kaladin either. I don't know who that is, but yeah, Idris Elba for the Stormfather would be perfect.
Yeah.
Have you seen the new Sonic?
Yeah, we watched it the other day.
What'd you think?
It was great.
Yeah, I think it was really good.
They could do more video game movies like that. Maybe fine. Be very entertaining. Had no issues with it. It was hilarious, entertaining.
I think some of the wedding stuff was a little over the top, but that's okay.
It was certainly over the top. That was... But in that way, it almost felt like the random stories that could happen during a Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
Or Game Boy game. Like, why did this happen? Oh, because the creator said so. Okay, sure. That was, but the bride going berserk was hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
That was well worth it. That was... Yeah, I don't know if there's anything more to say on Seon.
I will say that, trying to think of... Six of Dusk would be hard to do either way. But I think live action would be even harder.
Yeah, but it'd be really cool.
It'd be really cool. I think the multiple death scene thing appearing would be the most difficult thing to do CGI.
That would be great.
Yes.
Regardless. Because somebody did illustrations of that. And it was really cool.
Oh, that's neat.
It was very Junji Ito.
Oh,
feeling.
yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. Name drop every...
Have you seen Multiverse of Madness yet?
Yeah.
Holy fuck, the destruction of the Illuminati was way more gruesome than I expected it to be.
Yes, that made me very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I think It was. Yes. But that was spoilers for Marvel.
Yeah.
I'll cut that and put it at the beginning too. Yeah, no, that was
Yeah. Yeah.
that. So, I mean, it felt clunky. The movie itself felt clunky.
I won't deny that. Yes.
And
Also, I will say I wish they had not done the trailer the way they did. Because the trailer for Multiverse of Madness showed a completely different movie than we ended up watching.
How so?
It made it seem like evil Doctor Strange was going to be the main
Oh,
villain.
you're right.
And Wanda was a supporting character, not the main antagonist.
I will give them props for that. In terms of trailers so often give the whole movie away.
I think, okay, but I think they could have not given the whole movie away, while also not, like, explicitly lying to us. It was a lie. The trailer was a lie.
I can see where you're coming from, but as the movie progressed, I was more and more pleased that I did not know where it was going.
Which I understand.
Right.
But you can get that without having the studio explicitly lie to you in the trailer.
So you would just take the trailer scene with evil Doctor Strange out, and then that would have been... Was it just that facet of it?
Well, it was the facet of them representing that evil Doctor Strange was the main villain, and that Wanda was a supporting character. Because they never show evil Wanda.
They don't show evil Wanda, but in the last trailer they do show Captain Carter fighting Wanda.
Oh, okay, I don't know if I ever saw that trailer specifically.
It is for 2 seconds, and
gotcha.
Really, they show the shield,
right,
and they show some jetpack boots or whatever that makes her faster,
right,
and she is facing Wanda.
Gotcha.
But as you state, they cut it so that it felt like, why is Captain Carter attacking Wanda?
Right. And it's just that thing where it's like, if you don't want to know what a movie's about, you can just not watch trailers. For the most part. I'm not saying that that's an absolute, because of course, before a YouTube video or something, they can show...
Before YouTube video, before movies.
Right.
Articles will spoil stuff. I got spoiled from the title of a YouTube video. They put the Illuminati in Marvel. I was like, hey, go fuck yourself. Are you shitting me right now?
I mean, to be fair...
that was the night it came out.
To be fair, I didn't know who the Illuminati in Marvel was. If I saw that title, if I saw that on a YouTube video, I have no fucking idea what they're talking about.
So, in general, neither do I.
Right.
But it was enough that when I went into the movie, I was because they did the trailer with the voice of Patrick Stewart.
Right.
I was now I was now expecting the Illuminati to have Professor X on it.
Fair.
And that to come up at some point. So,
yes.
So the entire time, I was preoccupied with, how does this get to the Illuminati?
Fair. I will say, seeing Patrick Stewart as Professor X in the yellow hover chair was a treat. The fact that they gave him the yellow hover chair, I was so happy with.
Absolutely.
Like, I know that it was a throwaway thing, but I was still immensely happy to see Professor X come out in that yellow hover chair, and it also still be Patrick Stewart, because he's Professor X.
He is.
He is. I cannot pick anyone else who I think would do the role as well.
I mean, James McAvoy.
Don't get me wrong, I like the Professor X from
First Class and James McAvoy.
Yeah. But he wasn't... He was explicitly a prequel Professor X.
Right. And as he ages, hopefully if they bring the X-Men in, and as he ages and he takes on more of that role, I am not going to be upset after Patrick Stewart passes away,
right.
I will not be upset as they use James McAvoy.
Yes. But I mean, seeing Patrick Stewart there at the end of Days of Future Past,
and in Logan,
where X-Men, where Wolverine comes back,
yeah,
like I don't know, that was just, yeah, that was a,
like the Multiverse of Madness was clunky, the script was very basic, and that's partly to do with the fact that they changed directors partway through.
yeah.
Anytime that happens, somebody prove me wrong. It detracts.
Yeah, it does.
Sadly.
Well, it's kind of like the issue that was, I think, with the Star Wars sequel trilogy.
The sequel trilogy, yes.
Here's the thing. Unpopular opinion. I did not think that Last Jedi was the worst film in that trilogy.
Oh, no. Yeah, you're right. I'm right there with you, actually. I thought, I'll take one step further. I thought Last Jedi was the best one out of those three.
I'll agree with you, actually. Because here's the thing. As much as I loved The Force Awakens, it was an homage to the first trilogy.
It was.
And that's fine. That's fine for what it was. But it didn't do anything original.
No.
It was a thing. It was an homage to the first series. That's great. I loved it. It was fun. It was great. It got people back into Star Wars. Top notch. But it wasn't anything we hadn't already seen, really.
Right.
Last Jedi, I feel, even though it had more than I would have liked, it had a better, in my opinion, representation of the Force than we've seen since the original trilogy.
Agreed.
I don't like the idea of the Force being a superpower.
Right.
I don't like this prequel trilogies where they're chucking around Senate seats at each other, or, you know, you see all the Jedi in the arena pit fighting all those people and, like, doing ridiculous bullshit moves or whatever.
We can agree to disagree.
Fair. I'm not saying I don't like that. I don't like it as a representation of the Force.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Because if you look at the original Force, and it brings up some inconsistencies in my brain as well, because, like, if you see the Jedi back then, and as big a presence as they had, and then you turn around to Han Solo saying, I've never seen the Force, or,
right.
you know, I've never seen any reason to believe that the Force exists, like, dude, literally, probably within your living memory, you had Jedi flying around, fighting on planets and doing big arena battles and shit.
If you were in the Outer Rim or removed from the war enough,
yeah, maybe, but
it's more of a myth or a legend that these people exist.
But there's enough people that seem to not believe in the Force that it's weird.
The timeline makes it weird.
Yes,
but barring that,
but if you look at the original Star Wars, the original, and trust me, I am not holding these up as a paragon of filming.
No.
I think they're great. I also see the flaws.
Right.
I'm not denying that. But I will say their representation of the Force as something that is there but mostly unseen. Like Luke not using his targeting computer to make the shot that blows up the Death Star.
Right.
That could be passed off as luck.
True.
If you really wanted to. Like, if you didn't believe the Force exists, you could say lucky shot.
Sure.
The only time we ever explicitly see Force use, like, really originally, because even Obi-Wan's "these are not the droids you're looking for" type thing, still not super obvious as a use of the Force.
Could have rolled a nat 20 on persuasion.
Right. But if you look at Yoda lifting the X-Wing is really the first... Well, okay, excluding Vader. Because Vader doing the Force choke...
Right.
That's very explicitly Force use.
Yeah.
So until you see somebody who is powerful in the Force, like Vader or Yoda or, you know, Luke in the final movie, you don't see any explicit Force use that can be said to be not explainable away.
Right.
And then you get to the prequel trilogies where they're doing all sorts of shit.
Right. Force is everywhere.
Force is everywhere. Everybody's using it. And then you get to the sequel trilogies, and true, you have the use of Jedi mind trick by Rey
Right.
in the first series, which I didn't have an issue in the same way that other people had an issue with it.
Okay.
If you look at the original trilogy, even Obi-Wan with his mind trick, he's an incredibly old, powerful Force user.
Yes.
We know this about him.
Right.
Rey was a new user. I would have liked to see something more along the lines of making the shot without the targeting computer style thing. Something that could be explained away
Sure.
by good luck.
Sure.
And then you have the Last Jedi, where there is some explicit Force use there.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that the connection between Rey and Kylo at the end of the movie was explained as being, what's his name? Collapsed head dude.
Yes. Snoke.
Snoke says that he was the one that did that. And the only other explicit Force thing you get is when Rey goes down into the cave.
Yes.
But that's the cave acting on her. It's not her using the Force explicitly.
That's right.
So I actually liked that. I liked that a lot more. I loved the end fight scene between Kylo and Luke. Mm-hmm. The fact that Luke was using a projection, because I think that was great. It reminded me of him kind of learning from Yoda and being tricksy.
Right.
The only thing that I will say that I didn't like about The Last Jedi was I didn't like the fact that Luke died from using the projection ability. That was a little weird.
Something choosing to go into the Force.
I get that. It was still a little weird. I would have liked to see him do something else that would have strained his Force to the point where he decided to do that rather than hologram projection.
Right.
And Rey pulling the rocks away at the end from the back of the mine. Or not the mine, from the base. The base
right.
on the planet. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it was... She didn't show as much effort as I felt it needed. It should have needed. Now, it was following the prequel trilogy. I get that they're treating the Force more like a superpower, but I am not necessarily happy with that.
Sure.
I don't like that use of the Force. I think that if you are going to have it be a religion, it should not be something that is easily verifiably proven.
Right.
With Rey doing whatever the fuck she's doing, nobody should have any doubt in their mind that the Jedi exist, that the Force is a thing, and...
The only argument I could see being made is that for the original trilogy, the Force was asleep, and then the seventh movie, The Force Awakens.
Right, and I get that.
In a literal sense, now there's more of it to draw upon.
Right. Now, I will say, Rise of the Skywalker, my least favorite.
Yeah,
of the sequel trilogy.
There was some cool moments.
There were some cool moments, I'm not denying that. Half of the movie was a fetch quest that had absolutely zero consequence at all.
But they found Lando, and then Lando brought out the ships at the end.
Lando was fine. I didn't have the issue with Lando being found.
Right.
Chasing the movie, the fake out Chewbacca, it literally, like, almost the entire first half of the movie had zero lasting consequences. Especially because they find the map, and it is literally immediately pulled out of Rey's hands and crushed. Like... Also, why the fuck did that dagger show where the map was? That made no goddamn sense whatsoever.
I don't know.
That was the worst use of a prop in a movie I've seen in a long, long time.
They had to retroactively, in the novelization, and this is something my brother brought up.
Okay.
Kylo's TIE Fighter,
right,
was outfitted,
okay,
for hyperdrive. to be able to jump, to make it to whatever planet
Right.
Darth Return of the Sidious was on.
Right.
The TIE fighter that Kylo takes after Rey steals his TIE fighter, however she gets there.
Well, she fights him.
She fights him.
Stabs him, and
Right.
then leaves him. Well, she heals him.
Right.
And then takes off with his TIE fighter.
Right.
Right.
He then shows up in a TIE fighter
Right.
from the Death Star that canonically would not have been fitted for hyperdrive.
Right.
So retroactively in the novelization, they said, "Oh yeah, it's got a hyperdrive." And,
Right,
and I'm
right.
sure I'm wrong on some account there, but during the movie, my brother,
Yeah.
who you know, obviously, we're cousins.
Right.
He pointed that out as soon as the movie came out. He was like, "Yeah, there wouldn't have been
Hyperdrive.
a hyperdrive on those TIE fighters from the 6th movie."
And see, here's the thing. And so there's half of the movie is a pointless fetch quest. So much of that pointless fetch quest, along with some of the stuff after the pointless fetch quest, was specifically put in there to undo. I don't know the director of The Last
Rian
Jedi.
Johnson.
Yeah, undo what he set up, like making Rey the fucking granddaughter
so
of.
Mad.
I was so angry at that. Let her be a fucking nobody.
And somehow Palpatine has returned. Literally the line.
Right. Why not show that in the first... Give me an extra 2 fucking minutes of the first movie where they find that out because of the recording they literally pick up in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, have Leia turn in horror when they start playing the audio and be like, that's Palpatine's voice. 2 minutes. 2 minutes in the beginning of the movie. 2 extra minutes.
Yeah.
And you would have been able to set that up without dropping it in the opening crawl.
Right.
That was so dumb.
There was another retcon with the lightsaber that Luke, the ghost of Luke, it pulls the lightsaber and hands it to Rey.
Right.
In the burning whatever.
Right.
Retconning the fact that Luke threw it away.
Right.
Which I don't know exactly how I feel about Luke throwing it away in the 8th movie.
I will say that might have been probably my biggest complaint.
Right.
I don't think he would have done that. I don't think he would have agreed to teach Rey off the bat,
Right.
but I don't think he would have thrown it away.
Yeah.
It destroyed a lot of the emotional impact of finding it in the 7th movie.
That's right. So there's that. But the way they brought it back was just a complete 180 instead, like in a snap, instead
Yeah.
of having more impact with it somehow.
I
Now,
agree.
I'm not suggesting I would have come up with that, but essentially the 9th movie was the 8th movie doesn't exist, and then let's move on.
Yeah.
And also the 6th movie doesn't exist, and also this is really the only part that exists.
Right.
Is this 9th movie, and Rey from the 7th.
Yeah, and that bothered me because, like, Rey being a nobody was a plot point I enjoyed.
Yeah.
The fact that she had no attachment to the Skywalkers, no attachment to anyone, she was just a nobody that ended up strong in the Force and decided to be a hero.
Right. And
Also, Poe and Finn should have been a couple.
Absolutely.
Secondly, I didn't like the thing that they did with Poe, not in the complaint that a lot of people have brought up, but because in the 7th movie, we are shown obliquely that Poe might be strong in the Force.
Right.
Not Jedi level strong,
Right.
but enough to be an expert starfighter kind of thing. Like surpassing what most other people can do, realistically. And then they turn around and in the 9th movie, they make Finn the one who's shown to be somewhat strong in the Force.
Yeah.
And it kind of bothers me that they did this thing where they just kind of sidelined Poe entirely.
Right.
And it's like Finn, this ex-stormtrooper, actually might be strong in the Force. Or stronger than most people, not Jedi level. But
Right.
I'm like, we already had that. We already did that.
God bless you.
We already did that story beat. Use the character that's already there that you did that with.
Yeah. You're gonna fall, buddy. Look, if you fall, it's on you. You figuring it out? Come on, bud. I need to use the restroom.
Yeah.
Once
fine.
again.
Once more.
The coffee flows through this one.
Once more with feeling.
I didn't feel it the first time.
No.
Oh, God.
Huh.
What?
Feign is today's word of the day.
Fame?
Feign.
Oh, fame.
Spelled Foehn, but pronounced Feyn, which I'm assuming is pronounced feign. It is a warm, dry wind descending a mountain, as on the north side of the Alps.
That feels useless.
Probably. I mean, it doesn't have to be explicitly tied to the Alps, so... But...
We've had quite the long non-Cosmere corner.
Yes, we have. And other things. I mean, it's... I think Sanderson's stuff done animated would be the way I would want to see it done. Clearly he imagines it live action, so...
Pretty sure.
I don't know. I feel like... Like we said before, I will be happy with any representation we see of Sanderson, so long as it's done accurately.
Yeah.
And not like the Aragon movie. Because that was... we're not going to get off on that tangent.
I don't even remember it. It was so bad.
I still remember parts of it. I wish I didn't.
Alcohol. Just kidding. Don't. That was not in... Nope.
No. It's fine. Unfortunately, alcohol... I have had much alcohol between then and now, and I still remember parts of it.
Damn. Thought that was foolproof. No. Far Out Theories. There's not really... We just talked about animated versus...
Right. I mean, I still think that... So... I don't know if we're allowed to include this, but I'm going to include it because I feel like something big is coming in July, and I'm not going to include my explicit sources for thinking that. But the fact that I'm not going to pursue using the Kaladin soundtrack anymore for the opening for this show.
Right.
Because we did get explicit permission from the person who did the Mistborn's suite, and he actually just released a new album called The Music of Elantris.
Oh.
So we could look into both of them.
Indeed.
Hi. Yes, you're very sweet. But the fact that she told me to ask again in July because of contractual complications makes me curious.
Yeah. And of course I'm always going to be a more cynical person, so I don't think it's anything other than certain contracts ending.
But then why would she not say that? Because she was like, I'm not at liberty to discuss that, which, if it was just, the copyright will be up at that point... Like, that'd be common knowledge that anybody could research.
Yeah.
So...
Maybe it is...
Because unfortunately, it's not the release of the 5th Stormlight Archive.
Right.
I know that isn't coming until, 2024?
I mean, so if I were to make a contract with somebody over something like the soundtrack or books, I would likely put in something about, like, you cannot discuss the terms of this contract.
Which I understand.
Right.
But copyright is something that is public record.
Right. I think it's more likely that the Kaladin soundtrack was optioned for use by Dragonsteel.
That might be, yeah.
Up until X date.
Right.
So that's as hopeful as I'm getting, because I don't like to get too hopeful. so that I can be thoroughly surprised when Sanderson reveals that he's written 5 books.
So far out theory. Maybe something's coming in July.
Maybe.
What I would love to do is find out who owns the copyright office and do some phone detective work and see if I can find out when the copyright for the Kaladin soundtrack is up.
Yeah, I vaguely remember music copyrights exist for the composer's lifespan plus X.
I think 7 years or something like that.
Yeah, it's...
But that might not have anything to do with the rights that Dragonsteel has over the soundtrack.
Sure.
Because the Black Piper is, of course, the creator of the music.
Right.
But since copyright was obtained in some fashion by, I would assume Brandon Sanderson's, I would assume Dragonsteel?
Yeah,
okay,
or
so
it could be the book publishers.
Maybe, because, yeah, that's the difficult thing, which is like, of course I did a shit ton of detective work. I'm not going to lie, I'm a little salty that it ended in a no. Because of, it's not so much the amount of work I did. It was the amount of fucking time it took to get an answer from any fucking person in any kind of a,
Yeah.
like, timely manner. But anyway, yeah, of course I started with the Black Piper, because they're the artists that did it. I thought they would have it. Then I emailed Dragonsteel, and they were like, we don't own the copyright to this, go ask the artist. And I'm like, well, I just fucking did that, and they said they don't own the copyright either. And they were like, alright, so then any questions about that need to go through Brandon Sanderson's editor. I'm like, fine. So I go and email the top editor, because I don't know which one to go for. I'm just like, fine, I'll just hit the one at the top. And he's like, I'm going to be gone until the 19th. It was a stock email reply saying that he was gone until the 19th. This was back in April.
Think so?
Yeah, this is
March.
about right. Might have been March. No, April 9th. That was it. It was April 9th,
Right.
not the 19th. It was April 9th. And I'm like, well, that's like 5 days from now, so fine. I'll just... But he's like, I've delegated everything to, you know, in this thing to these people, in this thing to these people, etc., etc. And there was something about sound design or something along those lines, and who it was delegated to. And I was like, you're the closest that I can find. I'll email you. So I emailed her. And she was like, I passed this email along to the person it should have been. I'm like, that's fine. I don't really fucking care. I didn't know who it was supposed to be. Good thing you do. I'm glad.
Right.
Hopefully they'll get back to you soon. I'm like, cool. And I waited about a week. I think I waited 8 days. And then I emailed her back. And I'm like, hey, they haven't gotten back to me yet. Could I have their explicit email so I can follow up with them directly? She was like, sorry, she's been sick. Should be back in a few days. Absolutely, here's the email of the person. I was like, great, cool. So I waited a few days because I was like, she's been sick. Maybe it was COVID. That fucking sucks. I don't want to be bugging her with an email the minute she gets back into work about using the soundtrack.
Yeah.
That's kind of a shitty thing to do. Especially if she's been feeling bad. And the woman did say that my email was forwarded, so I waited to see whether or not I would actually get a response. Because if she's been sick, she may respond in a timely manner, immediately, the minute she gets back to work. So I waited a few days, email her, because I haven't gotten a response. I'm like, hey, I hope you're feeling better. I emailed you about this, or my email about this was forwarded to you a few days ago. I was wondering if we could get a response. And then she emailed back really promptly, actually. It was in like half an hour of when I sent that email. She was like, hey, sorry, it's been buried, blah, blah, blah. Biggest question is your podcast monetized? Like, there are other things that will be, that may factor into this, but that's the biggest factor. And I sent an email back saying, absolutely not, nor will it probably ever be in the future. We are just doing this as a labor of love to Brandon Sanderson. any costs associated with it come out of our own pocket.
Right.
Heard nothing back after that. And I'm like... I waited a few days, again, because I was like, she's busy, she has a job, I get it.
Yeah.
I don't expect her to respond to me and me alone and prioritize my emails or anything. But I did wait about another 8 days just to give her a proper time to respond. And I was like, is there anything else you need to know? And that's when she sent the thing of, at this moment, no, due to contractual complications, you can't use you can't use the soundtrack. Ask it again in July. It doesn't mean that will be an automatic yes, but those complications will be gone in July, so we can reconsider the answer. And then I asked what contract complications are keeping it, because I want to know, because that'll inform me going forward whether or not it's even something to pursue in July.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when she gave the response of, sorry, I'm not at liberty to speak about that.
I mean, the most hopeful I could get about it is that at some point, the Black Piper were commissioned by a studio to start creating music for it.
Right.
So that they could have something for their pitch meetings and whatever. And then that fell to the side, but that contract isn't up until...
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if anything comes out in July. Or if there's an announcement of anything in July.
There probably won't be.
Probably not, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, when did Elantris first come out?
2006.
So it's been
16 years.
Yeah, and we have not yet gotten any kind of Brandon Sanderson film, despite the popularity of the movies. So it's interesting.
2005.
2005. So it's interesting. Have you ever heard of a film called The Illusionist?
Yes.
It is based off of a short story called Eisenheim the Illusionist.
Okay.
And I wanted to find out what length that short story was, because that was an excellent movie.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like short stories turned into movies movies are the perfect medium for short stories.
Depending on the length, yeah.
Because Total Recall was actually also originally a short story called We Can Remember It For You Wholesale.
Interesting. I don't know if Harrison Bergeron warrants an entire movie.
I'm not saying all short stories should be movies. What I am saying, however, is that I think short stories are the perfect length to make a movie out of.
Yes.
Where book series need an actual TV series to capture everything that goes on.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you can make Dresden Files movies. Not without losing a lot of the content.
Please no. Just because, I mean, if we take even a Marvel timeline, like, movies with the same main actor are not every year.
No.
You can't.
Although Harry Potter managed to do it 6 times out of 7, or 7 times out of 8.
Year after year?
Yeah, there was 1 year without Harry Potter movie. But they were able to put them out within 1 year. Or wait, no, maybe I'm thinking of the books. I'm thinking it would switch off between the books and the movies.
Oh. Yes.
Where it was the release of a book, release of a movie, release of the book, release of a movie.
Yeah. Nobody cares about Secrets of Dumbledore yet.
Nope.
Yeah, there was like... a year and a half. Why didn't you just put these in order?
Because that'd be useful.
I mean, it's between a year and 2 years.
Yeah.
The first and the second were a year apart, but then the third was a year and a half. And then another year and a few months. And then 2 years. Yeah, so, I mean, but yeah, so you could do that. But if you if you took the Dresden Files in this full length...
Yeah.
So we're looking at between 17 and 34 years just for the movies that are out or books that are out right now.
Yeah. But that still also calls for 17 seasons. currently.
Yeah.
Of-
This is
If we did a book per season,
right.
let me put it that way.
Which I would not say that you need to do. And that is because the first 3 are very to the point.
Yeah, they are. You could probably... Well, honestly, the entire book of Stormfront takes place within, like, 24 hours.
Most of them take place within 24 hours.
Yeah, like...
24 to 48 to even 72.
You could probably do Stormfront and at least Full Moon as single... as part of a single season.
Right.
I don't know about Grave Peril, because there's enough of the Knights of the Cross and the vampires that you might have to do book 1 and book 2 as a season, and book 3 and book 4 as a season.
Yeah. There's a lot of ways you can angle it. You could have...
Or we could have 17 seasons, and you could do the first Dresden Files, like they did that show 24, where a season or an hour in the show is an hour in real life as well.
You could do that.
And so therefore you have 24 hours to cover the 24 hours of the first book.
But this does bring up a good point, like, if we were going to see Sanderson stuff in any kind of adaptation,
Right.
to get it out in a timely manner, I really would think, even if you did everything animated or you did everything live action, you would need to be working on several at once.
Yes. I feel that's easier to do animated, though. Because you don't have to call actors in, you don't have to call... I mean, voice actors, yes,
right.
But the animated aspect of it is going to be consistent. You just need the voice actors to match the
Right.
the mouth movements of the character.
Right. So what I would like to... My ideal would be animated where you're having... If you want to do it episodic or you want to just drop seasons... Like, it would be something new every month or every week
Right.
for, you know.
So here's the interesting thing that I would do, personally. I would do the romantic reading, the reading list that I have, well, adjusted slightly, because I have some short stories broken in between books for reference reasons that I don't think are necessary.
Okay.
But I would start with Mistborn, move on to Warbreaker,
Yeah.
move on to Stormlight Archives,
Mm-hmm.
and only after Stormlight Archives would I probably introduce Elantris.
Okay.
I feel like Elantris would have to be the last project before the crossover ones.
Yeah.
Because not only the way it works in universe, which will only make sense. Oh, but you know what you could do?
No.
Well, fine.
I don't know.
Fine. No, you could actually intersperse Emperor's Soul with Elantris.
Yeah.
I don't know where on the timeline it occurs,
Right.
but I feel like they're not too far away from each other.
As long as you don't have somebody coming in, writing a script, trying to shove the two together.
Yeah, don't have them connect in any way.
It would be neat to see... And again, I'll throw in what Star Wars is doing or what Marvel's doing with these 6-episode series.
Right.
If you did The Emperor's Soul, even somewhere near the beginning, this is a 6-episode series.
Right.
Limited series.
Right.
And then, at some point, you don't have to do Elantris right away, but then you just take
Right.
and have her appear in the background during Elantris.
That's fair, yeah.
Because people want things to tie together.
Well, she escaped.
She escaped, exactly.
So she's running.
Right.
Like, that would make a lot of sense.
You just don't have her do anything in the Elantris show. You just be like, there she is.
Well, didn't she have a stamp that, like, completely erased her...
Yes.
Does she use that at the very end?
Yes.
Yeah, so there you go. She's living a normal life.
Right.
She's not a soul stamper anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But then people would want more episodes, and you have to write more stories, and...
No, fuck them.
No more shy for you. Although she is somewhere. Sanderson laughed when somebody asked if she was some other character we had seen. And he said something about, no, but you'll see her again.
Oh, interesting.
Something like that.
Well, see, I think that... So, to go back to our investiture episode...
Okay.
I have a feeling she's going to actually play a major part. I feel like... Okay, maybe not her specifically, though I hope her. I feel soul casting will play a major part in the crossover story that's going to come. Because soul casting is probably... Although it takes a fuck ton of time... Wait, soul casting? No, not soul casting.
Soul forging?
Soul
stamping.
Soul stamping, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. I think soul stamping, even though it takes, a lot of time, I think it's going to play a major role in... What if that's what needs to be done, along with all the different forms of investiture, to bring Adonalsium back?
Oh, there we go. Now we're cooking with fire.
Yeah. Okay, this is going to have to go in a new episode. Because this is not about the films, but... And I need to leave soon. Indeed. But, what if that is...
I made hot dogs if you want.
Oh, thanks.
How much longer?
Not much longer. Just leave them. Yeah, thank you.
So yeah, what if the different god metals, or the other forms of investiture that Hoyd is collecting, is going to be combined with soul stamping to bring back Adonalsium, because soul stamping can go back in time. It changes the history of a thing.
I think you're right. I think that's a good theory. We'll end it there.
Yeah, we'll end it there. So there's my far out theory, I suppose.
Yeah.
What if soul stamping will be used to bring back Adonalsium via Hoyd?
Stamp Hoyd.
Well, that's what I was thinking, actually.
Yeah.
That was just what popped in my head, is that Hoyd has all of the investiture. What if he stamps himself to say that he collected out of all of Adonalsium's shards, rather than it being split up among the 16 people?
Oh my god. That'd be intense. That'd be a lot.
I could see it working, though.
Yeah.
Like, I could see that being where that goes.
Indeed. Well, I don't remember if we've made a stock outro.
Well, we have our Don't Panic World Hoppers.
That's right. And the Life Before Death and Strength Before Weakness and Journey Before insert item here.
Journey Before Coffee?
Journey Before Coffee. Yeah.
Let's record that again.
And Coffee Before Bathroom.
Yes. All right, I think that's our episode, unplanned as it was. I think film adaptations of the Sanderson movies is our discussion for today. To consider it a departure from...
An interlude, if you
Yeah, I
will.
was about to say, included as Interlude 1.
Yeah.
Because it does not fit the theme of the rest of our series, but hopefully it will be enjoyable regardless.
Indeed.
Because it is not Cosmere lore, but it is Cosmere related.
Indeed.
But until next time, don't panic, World Hoppers.
That's right.
Life before death, strength before weakness, and journey before coffee.
The music you hear is Part 3, The Spirit, from Zavadilla's The Music of Elantris, produced by B-Roll Records. Available now on Apple Music, Spotify, and most music providers.
If you like what you hear and you want others to hear it as well, please leave a rate and review. It really helps us get more listeners.